global leader of eco-friendly future materials. Green tomorrow with POSCO.
Coming up on Arirang News, President Yoon is in Paris and set to deliver a speech to support the bid to bring the World Expo 2030 to Busan. He also met his French counterpart to discuss a range of issues, including security and economic cooperation. South Korea's new drone operation command is to be launched in September to perform defensive as well as offensive missions amid the North's escalating air infiltration threats. An alarming indication. Scientists share data on a climate crisis of soaring temperatures, hot oceans, all-time high carbon pollution, and record low Antarctic ice. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. We begin with the South Korea-France summit. President Yoon is in Paris for a 3-day visit. He met President Emmanuel Macron on Tuesday before he heads over to present South Korea's bid to host the World Expo in Busan City in 2030. Our presidential correspondent Oh Soo-young is traveling with the president and joins us live from the Korean Press Center in downtown Paris. So Soo-young, the president met with French leader Emmanuel Macron and probably are in the stage of concluding their talks now.
Bonsoir from Paris, Chiang. Yes, indeed, Presidents Yoon and Macron met over an hour ago to hold a summit over lunch here in the French capital. We don't know yet what's coming out of the summit, of course, but the two leaders did issue their positions before heading in. Reflecting on the bilateral relationship in recent decades, which has blossomed from France sending over 3,400 soldiers to support South Korea during the 1950 to 53 Korean War, to vibrant trade relations today, President Yoon said that the two countries must now collaborate in pressing issue areas amid various global complexities and crises.
오늘 정상회담을 통해 저와 마크롱 대통령은 실질적 경제 협력을 증진하고 안정적 공급망을 구축하기 위한 공조 방안을 논의하게 될 것입니다.
In particular, he highlighted the areas of space, aerospace, and future industries. On geopolitical issues, as Seoul and Paris have shared interest in there being a peaceful and prosperous Indo-Pacific region, Yoon said they should work closer than ever to address North Korea's growing nuclear and missile threat. He noted that South Korea has been elected as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council, of which France is a permanent member, of course. President Macron congratulated South Korea for becoming a non-permanent member to the Security Council, and he said that South Korea and France's Indo-Pacific strategies are very much aligned, and that he'll continue to support Seoul as it deters North Korea's nuclear threat, calling for a complete and verifiable as well as irreversible denuclearization. The South Korean leader also expressed Seoul's solidarity with global efforts to support peace in Ukraine and reconstruction efforts, commending Macron for his leadership in that regard. On that note, he says that he hopes to see President Macron again in Seoul.
Right, and another major highlight of the president's visit to Paris, South Korea's bid to host the World Expo in Busan. He's making the presentation himself, right?
That's right. The president will soon be on his way to deliver a speech in person as part of South Korea's fourth presentation pitch to host the World Expo 2030 at the General Assembly of the Bureau International d'Exposition. He will be joined by world-famous K-pop star Psy, known mostly for Gangnam Style, as well as globally eminent figures in academia and entrepreneurship. K-pop girl group aespa's leader Karina and world-renowned soprano Sumi Cho will be making video appearances as well, showing how South Korean culture is also transforming and becoming transformed by new digital technologies. As for the president's speech, his spokesperson Yoon told reporters yesterday that it will focus on 4 key concepts: the future, South Korea's promise, giving back to global society, as well as solidarity. He briefly spoke about what he expects to see if the country wins the bid. Let's take a listen.
부산 박람회는 BI가 표방해온 혁신과 협력의 정신을 이어받아 글로벌 기업 간 새로운 비즈니스를 창출하는 플랫폼을 제공할 것입니다.
Now, today's presentation is considered the most important out of the total 5 pitches, as it's the most decisive one before the member states choose the host nation in a secret ballot in November. By the 5th pitch, I mean, they would have already made up their minds, so today's is incredibly important. So the pressure is indeed on, and I'll be keeping you updated on the presentation, of course, but that's all from me for now. Back to you, Chiang.
Thank you, Soo-young, for that. That was our presidential correspondent, Oh Soo-young, from the Korean Press Center in Paris. In other news, South Korea aims to take more aggressive action in the case of any North Korean drone intrusion. New details have emerged about a plan to build a new drone operations command following the North's drone incursion last year. Defense correspondent Kim Hyun-sung has the details.
The plan to beef up South Korea's air defense with a new drone operations command has become defined. Sources disclosed to Yonhap News Agency that this new command is set to adopt an aggressive countermeasure tactic. Speculation abounds that this new command will retaliate with overwhelming force should there be another illicit drone incursion from North Korea, with a drone fleet 10 times the size of any North Korean offensive. The Ministry of Defense neither confirmed nor denied this claim, but did share some expected roles of the new command.
When the Drone Operation Command is established, we will use drone power to perform defensive and offensive missions such as surveillance, reconnaissance, strike, psychological warfare, and electronic warfare.
Originally expected to become operational as early as July, reports now indicate that the launch will be delayed until September. But what is certain is that things are moving along, as the Drone Operations Command regulation was finally decided at a cabinet meeting on Tuesday. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo addressed the nation, emphasizing the need for a smooth launch.
The Ministry of National Defense and the Joint Chiefs of Staff should make every effort to launch the new Drone Operations Command without a hitch so that it can carry out complete operations at the earliest opportunity.
The announcement of this new command was a response to North Korea's drone infiltration last year, an incident of high national concern that saw 5 North Korean drones crossing into South Korean airspace, all of which eluded South Korean military attempts to intercept them. The Agency for Defense Development is also reportedly investing heavily in the project, allocating over 7.5 billion Korean won, or roughly $6 million, for the procurement of small unmanned aerial vehicles for reconnaissance and strike missions. Kim Hyun-sung, Arirang News.
South Korea's sole aircraft manufacturer, Korea Aerospace Industries, is taking part in the ongoing Paris Airshow 2023. The 54th edition of the Air Show, which is one of the top 3 international gatherings for aircraft manufacturers, airlines, and the defense sector, has returned for the first time in 4 years following interruptions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. During this year's show, KAI will seek ways to make inroads into the European market. Lately, the manufacturer had been garnering attention with its FA-50 light attack aircraft and has signed export contracts with Poland and Malaysia. It's also looking for buyers of the locally developed KF-21 fighter jet, which recently passed its provisional combat suitability evaluation test. KAI plans to meet with representatives, especially from the U.S. and European countries, such as Spain and Bulgaria, to look for potential customers. South Korean companies showed stunted growth in this first quarter of the year amid the global economic slowdown. This has led to a slump in semiconductor and oil exports. According to data released by the Bank of Korea on Tuesday, sales revenue in the first quarter of 2023 across over 20,000 firms only grew by 0.4% compared to the same period last year. This is the smallest growth recorded since the fourth quarter of 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic. Production firms showed a 2.1% decline in sales revenue on year, with the biggest drop shown in the production of machinery and electronic goods, which fell by over 14%. Ruling People Power Party Chairman Kim Ki-hyun says Chinese nationals in South Korea should not be able to vote in local elections, as South Koreans don't have the right to vote in China. Addressing the National Assembly on Tuesday as a leader of a parliamentary negotiating bloc, Kim said the Korea-China bilateral relationship should be based on the principle of reciprocity. The comments come at a time when Seoul-Beijing ties are sensitive following the Chinese ambassador to South Korea meeting with opposition leader Lee Jae-myung and saying the Yoon administration is wrong to bet on U.S. beating China. Kim also slammed Lee's decision to meet the Chinese ambassador and show, quote, a submissive stance to other country. Kim also noted the importance of hosting more migrants as the nation is going through a population decline and that his party plans to gather national consensus on expanding immigration. On the Fukushima wastewater issue, Kim asked Japan for transparency to make sure South Koreans feel safe. South Korea has decided to provide $7.8 million in aid for the humanitarian crisis in Sudan. During a meeting in Geneva, Yoon Sung-deok, South Korea's representative to the United Nations, announced a plan saying that he hopes to fund that will help the relief efforts and the development of the war-torn nation in the long term. Seoul's foreign ministry also said Tuesday that as non-permanent member of the UN Security Council, South Korea will continue to support nations affected by large humanitarian crisis. The UN Refugee Agency has estimated more than 800,000 people in Sudan have been driven out from their homes. For the first time in 6 years, a joint South Korea-Iraq committee meeting will be held as Seoul aims to help Korean companies win large projects in the Middle Eastern countries, such as in the construction of Bismaya New City. The government says that the meeting will be held in Seoul on Wednesday. The committee meetings led by South Korea's Minister of Land and Iraqi Minister of Trade were held 8 times from 1984 to 2017, but have not been held for the past several years due to the unstable situation in Iraq. Following the meeting, the government plans to facilitate the signing of Memorandum of Understanding with Iraq in various fields, including transportation, aviation, and diplomacy. Solar cells are most typical type of renewable energy, but have the disadvantage of high manufacturing and maintenance costs. A South Korean research team has developed a way to make solar cells more than 1/3 cheaper by using inexpensive new materials called perovskite. Jung Eun-ju has the details.
This is a solar cell that receives sunlight and generates electricity. Most solar cells are made of silicon, but silicon solar cells are expensive to manufacture and break easily. For this reason, many people are attempting to replace silicon with perovskite, a new material that is cheaper and absorbs light well. Scientists dissolve a mixture of powdered lead iodide and an ammonia compound in an organic solvent. They then apply liquid perovskite to a transparent electrode circuit board and let it dry. Current and voltage can be detected when the completed perovskite solar cell is put under strong light. As the perovskite absorbs light, electricity is created by the flow of electrons. Scientists all over the world have been competing to increase the efficiency of converting light into electricity in perovskite solar cells. A South Korean research team was the first in the world to exceed 20% efficiency, and the team continues to break its own records. The team achieved this by including an additive that increases the perovskite's particle size. This has the effect of dramatically reducing solar cell defects.
It looks like the same crystal structure, but there can be many defects depending on the manufacturing process. We've developed perovskite in a way that can minimize that defect.
The research team also made perovskite solar cells in a commercially available form of cell and module units. If mass-produced, they can be commercialized at 1/3 the price of silicon solar cells. With interest in increasing renewable energy's efficiency for carbon neutrality growing, interest in perovskite and South Korea's role in developing it has also gone up. Jung Eun-ju, Arirang News.
U.S. scientists have shared fresh, disturbing data detailing higher temperatures both on land and at sea and heavier carbon footprints, to name a few, that all urge for more tangible action against climate change. Our Shin Se-byuk reports.
The world is getting hotter and is already 1.2 degrees Celsius warmer than in pre-industrial times, getting closer to the 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold set in the Paris Climate Agreement in 2015. As concerns over climate change are mounting, CNN published 4 charts using scientific data that are causing alarm bells to ring. According to scientists, spiking temperatures, oceans heating up to record levels, all-time high carbon pollution, and all-time low Antarctic ice levels are of the greatest concern. First, the global temperature spike. This year is shaping up to be one of the hottest years on record. Data released by the European Union's Copernicus Climate Change Service last week show the first 11 days of June saw the highest temperatures on record. It was also the first time in June that temperatures breached pre-industrial levels by more than the global warming threshold of 1.5 degrees Celsius. Second, rising ocean surface temperatures that show no sign of stopping. In the past few years, ocean surface temperatures have been climbing to an alarming level. Ocean warming poses fatal consequences to marine and coral life. Last year, the world's oceans broke heat records for the 4th consecutive year. And according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, last month was the hottest May on record for the world's oceans since record-keeping began in 1850. On May 12th this year, average ocean temperatures hit 20.93 degrees. That's almost 0.3 degrees higher than the year before, and 0.66 degrees hotter than the 1982 to 2011 mean. Third, record low Antarctic sea ice. NASA says sea ice around the isolated continent in February this year reached its lowest extent since records began 44 years ago to below 1.8 million square kilometers, some 130,000 square kilometers below the previous record low set just the year before. Such a decline could cause severe harm to the continent's wildlife, including penguins, as they rely on the ice for hatching eggs and feeding their babies. Last but not least, all-time high carbon pollution levels. Levels of carbon dioxide in the air hit a record of 424 parts per million in May, more than 50% higher than in pre-industrial times. Scientists from the University of California in San Diego, who released the data, said in a statement that the figures will only climb further into territory, quote-unquote, not seen for millions of years. The world is heating up and tackling climate change has become more crucial than ever. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, a government-supported Korean language institute will be available in 6 more countries starting as early as next month. The King Sejong Institute will open schools in Peru, Malawi, Ivory Coast, Iceland, Austria, and Slovenia. Seoul's Culture Ministry on Tuesday added that the institute is expanding into these countries amid greater demand in response to the global popularity of K-content. By the end of this year, the institute hopes to have 248 locations worldwide offering Korean language and cultural programs. With K-pop gaining huge popularity across the world, K-pop groups are also evolving, like Black Swan, with all 4 members having different nationalities, and none are South Korean. Our Kim Jung-sil has this story.
Meet the next generation K-pop girl group Black Swan.
안녕하세요, 블랙선입니다.
Starting with leader Fatu, who's from Belgium, members Sriya, Envy, and Gabby come from India, the US, and Brazil. Even though none of the members were born in Korea, Black Swan got its training in Korea, and the members sing in Korean just like any other K-pop group. I asked them why they wanted to get into K-pop.
Around that time when I was 15, I was going through a very hard time mental-wise. But while watching Shiny 선배님들, they gave me back a lot of happiness. And K-pop being that genre, I was like, you know what? If I could if I could be able to do this for someone else who is going through the same thing I went through, that'd be amazing.
But it wasn't all a bed of roses on the road to becoming a group, especially the language gap.
There is so many ways to say the same thing that it was harder than I was expecting, the Korean, for sure. And training was also hard.
Other than like the physical and mental, I just felt it was very lonely sometimes, especially at the beginning because I didn't know much.
All their hard work didn't go unnoticed as after Black Swan released its much-anticipated single, Karma, it hit 4.5 million views on YouTube in 1 month.
Okay, 1, 2, show me what you like.
And it was filmed in member Surya's hometown in India.
I was so glad that we were able to shoot in India, in Odisha, and we were able to show our culture, one of our cultures, dance.
Representing K-pop, but also their own countries, Black Swan hopes to become global pop artists using K-pop as a stepping stone. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
South Korean golf star Ko Jin-young has tied for the record of most weeks spent in first place in the women's world rankings. The LPGA announced on Monday local time that this week marked Ko's 158th as #1. The record had been previously set by Mexico's Lorena Ochoa between 2007 and 2010. This comes following her victory at the Founders Cup last month, which gave her the title of the first ever champion to win the event 3 times.
The entire nation is forecast to see cold showers tomorrow. Therefore, the high temperature phenomenon that prevailed for the past few days will ease off. Maximum temperatures in Seoul will only get up to 25 degrees Celsius, which is lower than the seasonal norms. Showers have already started for southern parts of the country. They will spread nationwide overnight. As for the meta rainfall, inland regions will see 10 to 60 millimeters. Mountainous regions of Jeju Island will see up to 70 millimeters. Keep in mind that thunder and lightning may follow at times. And morning temperatures will be about 1 to 2 degrees higher than today. Tomorrow, Seoul, Daegu, and Gyeongju will be starting off at 20 degrees. Spotty showers will continue for the daytime. Highs in Seoul will get up to 25, Gwangju 26, Daegu and Gyeongju will be making it to 27. And for central regions, showers will continue into Thursday. For this weekend, sweltering spells will make a return with highs of 30 degrees. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all for tonight's newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back with the latest news tomorrow. Have a good night.
I'm live!
저를 도와주시는 분들이
저희와 함께 해주시는 세션 분들
아무리 봐도 없지 텐션 같은데 아니라고 아무도 안 하는 거고